The question before us today on the future of research and teaching in the health humanities has been on my mind since my arrival in Iowa City in 2000. My wife was pregnant at the time with our second child, and when disaster struck at birth, a knotted umbilical cord looped around our daughter's neck, we experienced not only the benefits of living in a city blessed with superb health care. Unbeknownst to us, an emergency neonatal team had assembled outside the door to whisk our daughter away and try to get her air into her lungs, but also the consequences of inadequate training in empathy, the province of the arts and humanities. For when at last our daughter began to breathe and she was taken to the ICU, my wife and I were left in the hands of a resident whose bedside manner left something to be desired. "It's just bad luck," she said. "Your daughter will have to declare in the next 24 hours whether she is for life or not." As it happened, she was not only tactless but wrong, as the attending physician later said by way of apology. And as the years have unfolded, and our daughter grew up to become, among other things, a singer with a big voice, that is to say, with big lungs, I have often wondered what became of that resident who may well have had the makings of a fine doctor in a technical sense, even if she possessed the discernment of a newt. There are doctors and nurses in my family, and so I take more than a passing or a layman's interest in the relationship between the mind and the body, the healing arts and the arts and humanities, which our distinguished panel will explore this morning in a series of presentations on various initiatives here at the University of Iowa. And I have to begin with an apology that Martin Dyar, the wonderful Irish poet and a professor of the humanities at Trinity College in Dublin, will not be able to join us this morning because he himself has a health issue. He suffered an injury to his back and is on his way home, as we understand it, from the hospital, but he can't join us this morning. So we're going to start with my colleague to my left, Jason Lewis, who is an MFA from the Writers' Workshop, the director of the Writing and Humanities program at the University of Iowa, Carver College of Medicine, graduate of the fiction program. His first novel, The 14th Colony, a novel with music, was released in 2011, along with a companion LP of songs written and performed by himself. And my good luck to turn to Jason to start the proceedings.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, so as Chris said, I'm Jason Lewis. I'm the director of the Writing and Humanities program here at the University of Iowa, Carver College of Medicine. So what I'm going to talk today about is something that I think dovetails nicely with what we've already heard this morning, balancing the personal and professional, and sort of humanities as a pathway to informed living. This is something that has been really interesting to me as I start to work with medical students. The first question that I always had when I found out that I was going to take this job was, why me? I'm a writer, I'm a musician, and I was a terrible student, absolutely awful. When I took the GRE to get into grad school so I could come to the workshop, I scored in the 1 percentile in math. So I was just awful. And I wear it proudly. But one thing that I found that I had in common with medical students is that I am a highly driven person. I think you have to be in order to try and do anything significant when it comes to the arts, because there's no set pathway, and usually you try really hard and you do well and then you fail, and you do it again. So I'm highly driven, and so my schooling was really interesting, and I'm only going to touch on this really briefly. I had no interest in anything other than being a rock and roll star. That's the only thing I wanted to be. This is from my senior year in high school. You'll see that that's me, right there. And then this man right here, his name was Howard Volberg. He passed away about a year and a half after this photo was taken. He was shot by a hitchhiker as he was driving home from a choir performance. He was the reason I went to college. He asked me my senior year, what are you going to do now? What's next? And I said, well, I want to be a rock and roll star. And he said, well, let's think about plan B. And he actually got me college applications. He helped me figure out what to do. He got me an audition to be a part of the voice program at West Virginia University where I went. And he was a big deal in my development. So then that's me, again, still doing the music and very emotional. And then I came to Iowa. I wrote a novel. And as Chris pointed out, it's a novel with music. I wrote songs. The main character is a singer-songwriter, and so I wrote songs that were supposed to be by him and included them with the novel. And as I was doing that, I went on to take a fellowship at a small liberal arts college down the highway, Augustana College. And one of the things that I did when I was at Augustana was I taught their introductory liberal arts course, right? And one of the primer that they used for that was a collection of work that ranged from Plato's Analogy of the Cave to more sociological texts, like one by a man named Earl Shorris. And it was titled On the Uses of Liberal Education, and this was part 2, as a weapon in the hands of the restless poor. And I keep coming back to this paper all the time. I talk about it all the time. The interesting point that was made, Mr. Shorris was visiting a woman that he was working with who was in prison. And she'd been in prison for years, and he asked her, why she thought poor people struggled in the way that they did. And she said basically that it was because of, it was like that cave thing, and she was referencing Analogy of the Cave. And she said, poor people are don't have the advantages. They don't know the morals of downtown, is how she put it. And so her theory was, if you could teach poor people the morals of downtown, art, history, culture, then you would give them the tools that they needed to be able to lift themselves up. That the world acts upon the poor, as opposed to the poor having agency to act upon the world. So this was Mr. Shorris sort of taking her shorthand notes of what she thought was going on with people who were struggling and in poverty, and spinning an idea from it. What he took with that idea and did was he said, I'm going to start a humanities course for the poor. It's going to be free. It's going to be in New York City. We're going to take applications. We're going to get as many people as we can. We're going to give them books. We're going to bring in teachers. We're going to take them to museums, and it's going to last for a year, and then we'll see what happens. So long story short, what happened was, of the 25 or so people that started, about 16 finished. Of those 16, some of them had gone on to get credit for their work in the course and went on to 4-year institutions. Others were full-time employed with good jobs and working their way out of poverty. The only one was unemployed, and she was only unemployed because she had tried to unionize her fast food job, and they fired her. So to me, as I work with medical students, the nagging implied question here as I work with them is, are medical students poor? In somewhat the same way. And so with my friend Dr. Calgin up there, Lars Calgin, who's the director of the Bioethics and Humanities program here at Iowa, we've done a couple of different things. When I first came in, I saw that the med students that I was working with were doing incredibly fantastic creative work with no recognition of that work in their graduation packet or conferred in any way. But they were doing significant work. And I said, we had a teaching distinction track, we had an education or research distinction track. We had all these different distinction tracks, but nothing available for these students. So Dr. Kalsner and I proposed that we have a humanities distinction track, where it's sort of wide open. But the students come to us with proposals and they say, I want to write a novel, or I want to do a collection of poetry, or I want to do something with interpretive dance. And that proposal tells us how they're going to do it and who their mentor is going to be, and we say go for it. They work on it over their 4 years, and then they present that to us at the end. And now we've graduated, I think we're about to graduate our 8th. We'll have 4 this year, so it'll be 8 total over the last 3 years of people who are doing this work. Then we thought, how do we take it further out? How do we get into the general population of the students? And we thought about the personal professional compass. And here's what the personal professional compass is all about. It's a program to help medical students understand, articulate, and integrate their personal and professional values and goals as they navigate their way through 4 years of medical school. Right? And so this sounds high-minded. It sounds like valuable effort and something that is really important. But what it really is, in many ways, is remediation. A lot of these students have not done this as a rule up to this point. Yesterday, Dr. Kalsner and I were teaching a course to fourth-year medical students where I gave them a prompt that said, write your worst secret, the thing that would undo you as a person if people knew it. And I was blown away by some of the things that the students came in with. And many of them were, what if I stopped caring? One student said, have I made the right choice because medical school is easy? And most of you might be thinking, well, how is medical school easy? Her point was that the path is laid out for you. You do well in school, you take the pre-med courses, you do well, you go to medical school, you do well, and then you get a job. How many jobs do we know of where you just sort of graduate and then they hand you this letter and it says, here's where you're going to work for the next several years? Awesome. But she was wondering, did I make the right choice? Or was there another choice for me and I just chose this because it was easy? And these are questions that these students aren't engaged in. They start very early to go down that path of specialization. So that was our idea about the personal professional compass. How can we bring that balance to these students? How can we help them come back to an idea that there is both the professional choice that you can make, but also a very personal one that'll bring you satisfaction and a sense of being whole in the course of work that you take, something that matches you in every way. So part of the personal professional compass, we needed a capstone because we need some sort of, measurable, right? We need to be able to say, well, there's a capstone project, the personal statement. Every med student has to write a personal statement to get into a residency program, right? I read almost every personal statement that every student at the Carver College of Medicine writes. About 150 a year. And I do half-an-hour workshops with them where I sit one-on-one and I talk to them about what their personal statement is saying to me, what it might not be saying, how they might say it better, or what I think they want to say but they're not. No one knows why we write these personal statements. They're an exercise in futility, really. It's almost like a torture. The students don't write. They come to me, they say, I'm really terrible at writing. I'm awful. And we don't know why we have to do it, but we do. And it helps pay my salary, so it's good, right? No one knows how to do it. If you look on the internet about medical student personal statements, there's all kinds of advice, but none of it is definitive. As a writer, I say, tell the truth. Be who you are. Trust your reader. And know yourself. This is a potentially powerful tool to these students. So the idea with the personal professional compass is we give them 4 years of readings, of discussion, of mentorship, where we help them figure out, who am I? What choice am I making? And why? And the capstone of that is the 5-paragraph personal statement that they write to then go on into that future. So it's the small thing that I can do with the understanding that balanced doctor equals better doctor. A doctor who can stand firmly on his or her feet, knowing why they're there, and having the answers to these important questions. That's going to be the better doctor, the doctor that I want to care for me and my family. And the humanities are a weapon for us in the fight toward better health care. So just like Dr. Shores saw an opportunity for those folks who were in abject poverty with no way out, I look at my medical students maybe in a similar light, seeing that they've sort of gone through their education in many ways without the benefit of having the light of the humanities shone on their choices. And this is our weapon that we can give them to go forward and to help all of us toward a better life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Next, we'll turn to Chuck Swanson, who began his career at Hancher Auditorium as the business manager in 1985. He became executive director in 2002. He serves as the departmental executive for all administrative, fiscal, operational, and programmatic activities. For the past several years, he has been involved in the design and now construction of the new Hancher Auditorium, which will open in the fall of 2016. His passions include cultivating and sustaining partnerships for Hancher with great artists within the University of Iowa community, our region, the state of Iowa, and on a national level. And I have to say, just on a personal note, I've had the good luck to work with Chuck ever since I came here. And I know he's going to speak a little bit this morning about one of his projects with the late Robert Bluestone and his wife, Rebecca Bluestone, in Woven Harmony. It was one of those great moments where we brought together the arts, the humanities, and the health sciences. Chuck?
Thank you, Chris, and I will be talking about that today. I want to first of all say thank you to Teresa and Andrea for giving me the opportunity today to share a lot of the Hancher stories. I really, really appreciate that. And Tess and Paul, thanks for your presentations. It just reinforces the work that we do, and I really enjoyed hearing from both of you. So for years, Hancher has connected the arts with healthcare. Many of our projects, including collaborations with Project Art, involved holding concerts over at the atrium area of the hospital for patients, family members, and medical staff. We have also done projects in collaboration with various departments within the hospital, and I just want to share a few examples of some of the artists that we've worked with. Bill T. Jones, I'm sure you all have heard of Bill T. Jones. He created a dance piece called Still Here, which included stories from patients with life-threatening illnesses. The Ying String Quartet. They held a 3-week residency that included the quartet playing in just about every corner of the hospital. And it was so amazing because the nurses finally caught on with this, and they started sending emails all around the hospital, and people just didn't want to miss any of these concerts. Robert and Rebecca Bluestone, that Chris mentioned, we had a week-long residency in partnership with the Holden Comprehensive Cancer Center. And Serk El-Waz, I'll never forget that one. We had artists, we brought him up to the pediatric oncology unit and was a unicyclist and a juggler. And they had never done this before, and I'll tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the room by the time they were done. And then the Mirror String Quartet is another one, and that was a concert in the oncology area of the hospital. So these were all well-done collaborations, but today I want to share 3 special projects that connected the arts with healthcare. Finally, we invested time and energy to measure the outcomes and the impact these projects had on patients, family members, and medical care providers. So in 2008, we had an opportunity to explore a much deeper way the work that we do in the healthcare world. Hancher applied for a grant under the Doris Duke Initiative, which was called the Creative Campus Innovations Program. The purpose of this program was to strengthen the performing arts on campuses, encouraging presenters such as Hancher to integrate their programming more within the academic world and to engage faculty, students, and others in innovative ways. Hancher was one of 8 presenters who received funding after a very competitive process. Our project was the creation of a theater piece called Eyepiece that explored vision and vision loss. Our partners included the Carver Center for Macular Degeneration, the writing program of the College of Medicine that Jason spoke about it, and it was pre-Jason time, the University of Iowa Theater Arts Department, and an artist called Rindy Eckert. Rindy is an actor, he's a writer, he's a director, he's a singer. Rindy really does it all. He graduated from the University of Iowa School of Music, and he attended Hancher as a student back in the 1970s. For this project, he spent a total of 6 week-long residencies at the university, interviewing patients, their loved ones, doctors, and medical students from the center. The way Rindy approached his research helped to create a deep experience into the creative process for all of our partners. Ed Stone is the director of the Center for Macular Degeneration, and Ed is a personal friend of mine, and I gotta tell you, that made a huge difference in getting this project rolling. Ed's passion and interest in the arts and healthcare helped to open lots of doors for us. Ed and Rindy also immediately created a chemistry like no other, and that helped to ensure success with our project. Rindy developed the piece with a cast of 15 graduate and undergraduate students from the Theater Arts Department. They went through auditions and also an extensive rehearsal process with Rindy. Our hope for this project was to create more compassion for doctors when dealing with vision loss, both for patients and their family members. Ed Stone mentioned the critical nature of such work. He said it was important to remind medical students that they were treating humans. Students are hit with pressures on grades and competition, and they need to always focus on their compassion for others. Leading up to the play, Hancher hosted several panel discussions, student workshops, and open rehearsals, targeted to medical and theater students, family members of patients, medical staff, and faculty. iPiece was very successful on many levels. First of all, we interviewed the doctors and the medical students after the performances, and they said this was the first time they have experienced a theater piece that used correct medical terminology and accurately portrayed a blind person. Students who were in the production were totally transformed by the experience. They felt that they were given an opportunity to see into the world of a person with disabilities, and that this would have an impact on them forever. We also surveyed audience members who were enlightened by the experience and felt moved by the play. One of the major successes was the deep experience for all the partners into the creative process and a feeling of success in bringing the arts and the sciences together. A second project that I want to share was a statewide project, this is what Chris mentioned, on healthcare and the arts initiated by Hancher back in 2009. This was titled A Journey Through Iowa. Our partners were the College of Public Health, which are really close partners, and the Holden Comprehensive Cancer Center. We commissioned Robert and Rebecca Bluestone from Santa Fe for 3 weeks to tour 5 Iowa communities: Spencer, Algona, Des Moines, Grinnell, and Davenport. Robert and Rebecca had developed a residency and a performance program called Woven Harmony, which was designed for healthcare audiences: physicians, nurses, patients, and family members, hospice caregivers, and others. Rebecca is a weaver whose work has been included in the Chicago Art Institute in the Museum of Arts and Design in New York City. She is also an ovarian cancer survivor. Robert, who has since passed away, was an accomplished classical guitarist. Robert was her caretaker during her bout with cancer, and he used his music as a way to help her get through this difficult ordeal. Their work focused on the powerful connection between creativity and healing, and they were on a mission to share this with audiences who would feel the impact. There was a 2-day residency in each one of the communities, and we culminated it with a performance on the 3rd day. The most meaningful moments of the entire project were the discussions following each of the performances. Rebecca's tapestries were hung in each of the performance venues, and the audience members were encouraged to talk with Robert and Rebecca and to view the tapestries. Many of the audience members had their own personal stories to share, and they were moved by the performance and the previous activities, and they were eager to share their stories with Robert and Rebecca. Interviews were conducted following the performances, and I'll never forget one of them. It was in Des Moines, and one of the audience members shared that she herself was an artist, and once she started her treatments of chemotherapy, she just couldn't practice her piano anymore. So after attending a second residency activity of the Bluestones, she went home and she started to play her piano. She was proud to share the news with us after the performance. We certainly didn't conquer cancer, but I do feel that through the arts, we brought relief to people and to families who are dealing with a serious illness, such as cancer, as well as to doctors, nurses, caretakers, and many others. The project gave us an opportunity to bring an innovative arts program to our great state of Iowa and help participants to learn to incorporate the role of the arts and creativity in the healing process and the healthcare environment. The third project that I want to share focused on the creation of a new piece of theater called The Broken Chord. Hancher commissioned Working Group Theater, which I know a lot of you know, it's a local theater company, to create a piece of work that explored the impact of Alzheimer's on patients, but more important, we wanted to focus on the caretakers. It was a story of a brother and a sister as they come to terms with the role of caregivers when they find out that their mother has just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. The project included a year of research where Hancher and Working Group Theater worked with a variety of partners within the university and our local community. We wanted the partners there again to be a part of the creative process and understand the excitement that comes from creating a new piece of work. And I just want to share with you the list of partners. They included, of course, the College of Public Health, the University of Iowa Center on Aging, University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics, the School of Social Work, the Iowa City Senior Center, Iowa City Hospice, Oak Knoll Retirement Center, and the Iowa City High Schools. Throughout the year-long process, these partners became deeply involved in the project, and their participation generated significant community engagement. Plus, the subject matter helped to inspire those who care so deeply about this topic to become involved from the very beginning. For this project, we had several goals in mind. First, we wanted to raise awareness about memory-related diseases and especially about caregiving issues. Secondly, we wanted to inspire people to get involved as either donors for the cause or as volunteers to help. We also wanted to create a passive understanding through the power of live theater. We really wanted people to feel what it was like to be a caretaker. And so, we were very fortunate with our partnership with the College of Public Health. They helped with the evaluation process by conducting surveys at the end of every performance. We were very pleased with the results of the surveys. Responses clearly demonstrated the impact of the broken chord on the audience's knowledge and understanding of Alzheimer's. The audience responded that they have greater empathy for families struggling with the disease and that the broken chord brought them deeper into the world of a person with a memory disease. These audience members also stated that they would be more likely to volunteer to help caregivers and those suffering from Alzheimer's. All of these projects created positive relationships for Hancher, and we continue to sustain these partnerships as we explore and produce more projects that connect the arts with healthcare. These connections, we feel, have made significant contributions to the lives of people who are dealing with difficult health issues, and also to the healthcare providers who are working hard to help their patients and their loved ones. I believe these experiences for audience and our partners are unique. I feel that they're very relevant, and I feel that they have great value. And I promise you, Hancher will continue to work with partners and will seek out new collaborators in the world of healthcare because we believe in the value of the work and we truly believe it makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Our final speaker is Amy Richard, who is currently pursuing an MFA in the Center for the Book here at the University of Iowa, where she is focusing on the history and technique of hand papermaking, as well as spiritual traditions associated with paper. She serves on the board of directors for Hand Papermaking Inc., an international organization dedicated to advancing traditional and contemporary ideas in the art of papermaking. She is also a volunteer for the Hand Papermaking Documentation Project, a collaborative effort to document the evolution and genealogy of papermaking from the time of its reemergence in the early 1900s through the present in the U.S. and worldwide. 2 years ago, she began partnering with art therapists and the Peace Paper Project to bring papermaking to healing arts communities through workshops and demonstrations. Amy earned a BFA in 1984 and is returning to the visual arts full-time after spending many years at the University of Florida developing educational curricula about aquatic plants and freshwater ecology.
Kind of an interesting mix, huh? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for being here. I wanted to start by giving a shout out to Martin Dyar, who couldn't be here today, and who was lovely enough to think of me and pass my name along to Andrea, who asked me to be here today, and I'm delighted to be here. I want to introduce my cohort classmate, Mary Patton, who's going to be helping with this presentation and doing a demonstration in a few minutes. My talk is about hand paper making as a process and how a group of people have found it to be particularly effective for the healing arts and art therapy, and go into a little bit about why that might be. And then I'm seeking input from you. So I'm going to start with just a real quick introduction to the hand paper making process. It's just a real short overview. And then I'm going to talk about this model that was developed that's been spreading throughout the U.S. and internationally. And then I'm hoping to begin a dialogue with you all about this type of work. So I thought I'd just start off initially with a quick definition of paper, because there's a lot of kind of confusion over what it really is and what it's made of. So in a nutshell, it's cellulose fiber that's beaten or macerated and then in water, and then it's suspended in a larger volume of water and then allowed to dry. That's just a real basic definition. The first paper was found that we know of is found in China and dated back to about 150 BC. It's an incredible history. It's one of the reasons I'm here to study, but it's way too much for us to discuss today. I just want to make the point that the common denominator is cellulose fiber. It starts with plants, but then paper is actually kind of a recycled product, because it really starts with plants, cotton, hemp, flax. Those are some of the earliest fibers that were then made into fabric and cloth that were then recycled into what we know as paper today. Just to give you a quick overview of the cloth, these are contemporary pictures, they're not historical, but so handmade paper is made from bits of cloth that are circulated in a gadget called a Hollander beater that was invented in the late 1600s. It's circulated in this tub of water. This Hollander beater has a drum with these metal blades on it that slowly lowers down against a bed plate that starts tearing and ripping the cloth apart, and to get what we know as paper pulp. And so I'm explaining some of that because it's relevant to what we'll be talking about in a few minutes. So this process, this very basic process of making handmade paper, was recognized by a couple of individuals in 2007 when they were working together. Drew Matat is a book artist and paper maker, and Drew Cameron was a returning veteran from the Iraq War. He did a 9-month tour in Iraq. And Drew Cameron took a workshop from Drew Matat about hand paper making and was fascinated and really dug in. He asked him to teach him everything he knew about paper making and printing and book arts. So they spent a year collaborating together in the Green Door studio in Vermont. And they were doing some street theater to try to raise awareness and consciousness about the war and what were we doing there. And so they started working with veterans and actually cutting up their military fatigues and making paper with them. Drew Cameron was this returning veteran turned artist, found it to be just an incredibly cathartic experience to take, and he did a very important piece called Breaking Rank, where he literally stood and just started cutting the fabric off of his fatigues, off of his body. They put it in a beater, made paper, and that was the beginning. This ended up being such a kind of an amazing process that the two of them took this on the road and spent 5 years traveling through the US. They took it to Europe, they went to Bosnia, they went to Ireland, they went to different places that have been suffering from conflict. A few years after that, Drew Matat, the book artist, papermaker, stepped away from that to start the Peace Paper Project. As he found, and through these experiences of working together, that he just found himself drawn to art therapists and healing arts communities. The two of them are paralleling, they're both continuing really important work in different ways. Another interesting initiative that came out of the Peace Paper Project was panty pulping, which was started by Drew Matat's partner, Margaret Mahan, where they're doing public intervention to end sexual and domestic violence and raise awareness about it by working with women and making paper from the unmentionables. So I'm telling you some of these because this is just part of this legacy that has been spreading, and there's just all sorts of projects. If you go to these websites, which I'll be happy to share with you, you can find out more information. But for me, my personal story was that I encountered Drew Matat with the Peace Paper Project, and then I started working with, or approach an art therapist, Amy Bucciarelli, here in the center at the Shands Arts and Medicine program. Something told me that it was really important to get the Peace Paper Project to Gainesville. I'd been working with Veterans for Peace, and it just seemed like a really important work. So I approached Amy, and she was all over it and helped raise the funds to pay them a stipend to come to Gainesville. And it was just an amazing few days of work. They worked with veterans, and then they worked with, she's an art therapist for pediatric oncology and worked, so we had this papermaking studio set up in a garden outside, and patients came with their IVs in tow and made paper with us on a beautiful autumn afternoon, and I'm forever changed as a result. So in working with them, they helped identify some of the characteristics that are so healing about handmade paper. I mean, all of the arts are wonderful, and they all have something different to bring to the table. But we kept struggling with it. We all just felt like it's inherently therapeutic, but we couldn't really put our finger on it. And papermakers that I've worked with and served with on these boards have all said the same thing. Well, Amy and her colleague Genevieve Camp started putting language to this, and it was just very helpful to me and eye-opening. And so I'm going to invite Mary to do a demonstration as I kind of talk about these characteristics. So one of the things about hand paper making is it involves the whole body. So you're mixing up the vat, you're mixing the pulp that's suspended in the water, and then she's going to take that mold and decal, that mesh screen, and she's going to pull it through the vat, and the water's probably pretty cold today. And then it's repetitive, so it creates muscle memory. It's just this activity that's very comforting and very meditative. You can just kind of keep doing it over and over again. It's sensory-based, it's multi-sensory-based. Your hands are in water. Sometimes there's smells associated with the pulp that you're putting in the water. There's all sorts of things happening at one time. There's structure that gives emotional stability. It's a form of creative self-expression, and it's very accessible. It's not something that you have to study for 6 months or a year or years to master. You can learn it in a matter of a few minutes, and so it's very accessible to people. It places us in the moment. I mean, all of the creative arts, that's one of the wonderful things about it, is it does place us in this moment where we can't think of anything else but this wonderful creative activity. There's risk-taking involved. She's making a sheet right now, and If it doesn't work out, there's a technique we call kissing it off, and so you can take the decal off, and she'll demo that now. You can take the decal off, and it doesn't work out, you just plop it right back in the vat and
Just flip it over, touch the surface,
start again.
stop into that.
Yep. So there's control and safety with many mistakes that might be made. It's just, like I said, it's very accessible. And then the end products, I've got some samples here from the piece paper project of some work that's done, and it's very has a lot of meaning and value. Papermaking, and traditionally there's a lot of community involved because it takes a lot, it's very labor intensive, so there is a community involved in doing this. It's culturally accessible. It's not anything that's going to leave anybody feeling isolated because it's not part of their culture. It's just a wonderful medium. There's lots of joy and anticipation and wondering what's going to happen. Now she's going to couch the sheet. Couch is spelled like couch from the French word coucher, meaning to sit or to rest. So she's just couched a piece of handmade paper there. So those are some of the things that just the process alone is inherently therapeutic. But there's something else that I touched on earlier that I think is really, really major, and it's our clothing, the fact that our clothing is involved in this. And when Drew Matat talked about this, it was just this kind of revelation to me, or epiphany. It's like, he's right, that's what's going on. So you think about our clothing and all the things, the attachments that we have to it. Our skin is actually embedded in the clothing that we wear, you know. And then we think about the pride and the personal identity we get from our uniforms, from it provides us with protection, social status. Theater, you think about how you can put on a piece of clothing or fabric and instantly you're able to portray this character. The rituals in our lives, just all of these things. And then the hospital gown was particularly poignant for me after spending a lot of time as a caretaker with my father in the hospital suffering from Parkinson's. And that day when I was there with them and I started cutting up that hospital gown in honor of my father, man, did it come home. It really hit home what this is about. So our clothing holds memories, and deconstructing that and then reconstructing it into artwork that can then be used to make books, to write narratives on, to print poetry, to paint, all of these different things. It's this substrate, this wonderful expressive substrate. So Drew says every fiber that goes into the making of paper has a story to tell, and that's what these handmade paper sheets hold. Mary's passed out, there's a piece of photocopy paper and a piece of handmade paper, and we just wanted to have something for you just tactile to feel the difference between those surfaces. To me, handmade paper just feels like it's living and breathing, because it is. It's made from cellulose, and it's just a wonderful material. So at the risk of going over a few minutes, I have a 3-minute video, and if I know I don't want to hold people. Are we good? Okay. So as a result of this workshop that we did together, I was approached by Genevieve Camp, who's an art therapist for the Eating Disorder Recovery Center in Gainesville, and she said, I've got an idea. I'd like to take the clothing that my patients have outgrown because they're finally getting healthy eating habits and gaining weight. Some of the jeans were so small that you could just pull them over your arm. Anyhow, so she wanted to make paper with that and work with them, and then make this dress, this paper dress, as a celebration of healthy body size. And so that's what we did. And I just wanted to share this video with you, with the hopes that it will generate some ideas look for ways that we can all collaborate. Mary's a student at the Center for the Book as well, and there's about a half a dozen of us that we've identified that this is something we're very interested in doing and pursuing. So we'd love to hear your ideas.
Sing, oh, 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 oh. Sing, oh, 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 oh. Tomorrow you will know there's no day better than today. We don't see how lucky these days until they go away. Till these days go away. Sing, oh, 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 oh. Sing, oh, 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 oh. Tomorrow you will know there's no day better than today. We don't see how lucky these days until they go away. Till these days go away.
So I leave you with that thought, and just to know that we are here and would really like to look for opportunities to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Without Martin, we actually have more time to have some discussion, so I wonder if there are questions from the floor or ideas you want to start throwing around. We've had 3 terrific presentations, which I know will generate more ideas and more connections. Yeah. Please.
I have this was terrific, and I have responses for everybody because this presentation just happened. Of course, it's the most immediate in my mind, and I want to say Penn State has a Center for the History of the Book, and I would love to see if we could get you there to talk about this, because it just seems a really interesting expansion of what the book is. We tend to think of it in a very different way, and so yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Thank you. I'd also like to open that opportunity. Drew and Margaret, the Peace Paper, have been doing this for the last number of years, going around the country, all this equipment packed into a 2-door Chevrolet mini car or something. It's like a clown car with all the stuff they pull out of there. But and the model that they use in combat paper as well is they like to come into a community, do a workshop for about a week, but then hook up with art therapy practitioners in that town, so you don't show up in town, get everybody excited, and then leave, so that this work can keep continuing. And that's the model that's so effective, that's been so wonderful, and that's how it just kind of keeps spreading. So love to chat with you about that. And the book, that's why I'm here at the Center for the Book. Interestingly enough, Drew Cameron's father studied Japanese papermaking with Tim Barrett probably 20 years ago or something. So this soldier turned artist was familiar with the papermaking process. But the Center for the Book here is just this magical place where people interested in archival paper and special collections and book arts and papermaking, all these different disciplines can come together, and poetry and writers and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity here. Thank you.
I might just add that when we finished assembling the dossier for Iowa City to be considered a UNESCO City of Literature, I called Tim and said, can you do something with what we've created? And what he did was he made a Korean box with a one-off broadside of a poem that we had commissioned Marvin Bell to write, and we sent it off to UNESCO. It was so beautiful. And we've been trying ever since to get it back from UNESCO because we fear it's on some shelf in Paris and nobody recognizes what a beautiful thing that Tim has made.
Can I just give it just an observation? Yeah. It's a fantastic presentation. And bodes well for Iowa. I mean, this is great stuff. I love the expressive substrate. I've written that down. I like that. And I think I like the accessibility. If I had room in my luggage, I would take those blinking frames back to nothing. Because we've got some major difficulties with eating disorders services. And so the ethnodrama and all the drama work, the literature and so on, I'm just going to lie back, I'm stunned. Well done.
Thank you. I think Teresa, then here, then there. Okay, yeah.
Thank you all so much. It's really wonderful to hear these together, and I'm thanking Martin, the spirit of Martin,
Yes.
so much to be with us too. At the heart of what each of you have described really is partnership. which takes us back to the health humanities configuration. And I wonder if you just comment a little bit, and maybe starting with Chuck, about how you've made these partnerships and what you found to be the kind of practice that resulted in such strong, productive partnerships.
Well, I think number one, Teresa, is that we always say that the key to a successful project is really the right partners. So that is for sure always the big question. And one thing that we have been really always try to do when we do a major project is before we make any decisions about the project, we try to think about who the right partners are, because we really don't want to get involved in the project till we get everybody to the table. And then what's really been best for us is that we try to quietly take a producer role, and we really like everybody else to shine at whatever they're really great at doing. And in terms of the producer's role, we of course have to watch the budget. We got to, be concerned about marketing. We want everybody to, to hear about the project. Schedules, those sorts of things that really a lot of people don't want to do or they don't have the talents to do. And then we just hopefully together create this fabulous sort of, project that we couldn't do on our own. And then once we're done, we just quietly go back to our own world. And we develop these relationships, I think, over time because of the success of previous projects. Then when we go back to the table, a lot of times it's with the same partners, but then those partners have reached out to others, and they've really talked about the collaborative spirit that Hancher has, and they want to be a part of it, So I think the key is always at the very start is really, who is this going to make sense to? Who is going to have similar goals that we have, and then really bring them to the table at the very, very beginning, and give them a sense of, because not everybody has the experience that we have with the creation of new work. And I tell you, it's addictive, once you get, the opportunity to do that. And so when others, get the sense that they're a part of this whole process, they want to do it again and again. So, yeah, it's difficult at times, I think communication is the key. You want to keep everybody on board and really keep them up to date. And everybody has a different communication style, and a different need for what they want to know or what they need to know. But for us, I love the quiet role of the producer, getting it started, and then really there again, trying to find, the right people, and then let them just do what they're so good at doing, So.
Chuck, could I just
Yes.
wonder if you will contact Amy in connection with Liz Lerman's Healing Wars
yes.
project coming in the fall?
Yeah.
This seems like a natural.
That does seem like a natural. Yeah.
I had a piece of this, because I had the opportunity when the Peace Paper Project came to Gainesville to just kind of step back and observe. And one of the challenges for artists and practitioners in doing art therapy and healing arts is compassion fatigue, the very thing that you mentioned. And I was so worried. I was kind of like mother hen to Drew and Margaret. They were about the ages of my own sons, and seeing the work that they did, and it's exhausting, and the hours that they put in, it is truly an act of love. They also have to be paid a stipend. Those are things that I was really glad to see that they did. Like they can't come to a community unless there's a stipend involved. So looking for ways to facilitate that, to be sure to pay these artists for their work. And also, so what they kept this just insane schedule. I mean, literally in a different town every other day or something, or they'll be there for a week and then they'll have another, workshop to do. And then they were pretty brilliant. They earn enough money to buy plane tickets, and then they'd go to Spain and hang out for 2 or 3 months and chill. Of course, then they started doing workshops over there too. So, but it just there's some pieces that struck me, because I was looking into this, even as being an art practitioner for Shan's our Arts and Medicine program, and so they pay pretty decent. It's $25 an hour it's a lot of work. But then she said, well, there's no health insurance for our artists. So there's just things like that that made me realize, yeah, we've got some more work to do, and that we value this work, and it is very valuable to bring these worlds together. But the grant writing and all the work that has to go into making this happen, to find the funding so that you can, continue to live and eat and those types of things too, that has to be addressed as well somehow. So those are some of the challenges that I see in making space for the art therapy practitioners to also bolster themselves from compassion fatigue, because they'll put everything they've got out there, and it's risky for that reason. Thank you.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you all so much. I mean, what I love about this is just, it shows all the multiple locations of the work you're doing. I mean, the classroom, the community, patients, clinicians, so I really appreciate this. The other thing that I really love about this is that, and part of it is maybe my own limited focus. We've spent a lot of time talking about the humanities and health professions, education and clinical work. And the arts are part of that, but they haven't really been as explored and as profiled. And I mean, short of, I just can't even think about another gigantic project, but I mean, one of the things that occurs to me is, finding a place to articulate and describe some of the things that happen, that are happening here. For the one hand, just to let everybody know, and on the other hand, so that we can poach some of these ideas, just steal them like crazy. But I do think oftentimes the arts kind of tend to get, oh, it's arts therapy, or oh, it's, it's just icing on the cake, that sort of thing. And I think what we see with this and the work some of us are doing on our own campuses, what we're finding is that there is a genuine contribution in all facets that this kind of work makes. So, I guess I would encourage you to start publishing, or maybe we can find a way to, get some of these programs and projects out there for all of us to know about and to steal. Academic medicine has done 2 issues on the humanities. They've never done an issue on the arts on campuses, and I'm thinking, I'm going to call them and say, you should do this. So I would encourage you to, to get this stuff out there so we can steal it from you.
And if I can sneak in an extra suggestion, there's a wonderful organization that the University of Iowa is a member of called Imagining America, Artists and Scholars in Public Life. And Imagining America has just launched an online journal called Public. And what is so fabulous about that's to look at publicly engaged arts, humanities, and design projects. But what's so fabulous about it is when you submit an idea to them for a project you'd like to publish, you tell them what design elements, from video to other kind of, web possibilities, visual possibilities, mapping you'd like to have, and if they accept your article, you get the design support from the journal. Wow. Which is incredible. So I would encourage you to Google Imagining America and look for the journal, because that would be a great place for a special issue on these issues, and then to link up with some of the other journals maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are quite a number of journals that you could pitch at. I think online stuff, whether it's websites dedicated to health humanities or other websites, I think is a key way to get the comms out there about some of the success. And I think there's a long road ahead with that. But I did like Chuck's view of production and producing and building others to build yourself. There's a model there for this kind of work.
I did want to speak a little bit to some of what Tess was saying. It's always coming to this not from, an academic background or as a practitioner of healthcare. It's been interesting to me to see some of the takes that people have on how to approach these things, and there are sort of programmatic takes, and then there are practical takes, and I came to it as an artist first. That was what I knew best, and I felt like I was coming into the job with my mandate sort of being offer the students that I was working with the benefit of my experience and knowledge. And that goes to sort of the partnership that I have with them. And a lot of what I have to offer is not necessarily, I don't feel like it's necessarily the technical, this is how you write well. But almost everything that I've ever done has been created out of sheer will. Just the will to do it. And I think all artists offer that as their experience. And to say to students, to say to patients, to say to the community that the will to do it is something that you can generate and you can support has been really important to me to bring out there. I mean, I have much love and respect for folks like Rita Sharon and everything, and folks who do that kind of work, but I come to it and I say to my students all the time, we're all natural storytellers. We have it sort of embedded in our DNA the ability to tell and understand stories and to make sense of the world through that ability. And I think a lot of our culture is a specialist culture. Teachers tell students at a young age, you're good at math. And that tells them you're not good at the other thing, right? And so I say we're all good at that. We might have had more experience doing one thing or the other because our aptitude showed itself at a certain time. But don't pigeonhole yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to explore the idea that your story and the story of the people that you're working with as a doctor or as a patient is interconnected. And as a doctor, you are the steward of your patient's story from the moment you meet with them until they move on to the next person. You have to be able to tell that story effectively. And to understand stories is not just an academic endeavor. It is in many ways, integral to life and death for these patients. And that's what I feel like I can bring as someone who only knows that and comes at it the other way.
I would just add Howard Brody, some of you know Howard Brody's work. He has such a wonderful way of describing that relationship, whether it's professional patient or student teacher, as an act of co-authorship. And I really love that because it captures exactly what you just said. Yeah, thank you.
I'm Mary Adamek. I'm in the Department of Music Therapy and School of Music here. And I appreciate what everybody said, but Amy, I particularly appreciate when you talk about your collaboration with arts therapists, because we talk about arts in the community, we talk about arts about healthcare in the community, we have arts in healthcare, and then we have creative arts therapies. And it's a real continuum of different goals and focus, personnel, backgrounds, certifications, talents, all those things. And I think one thing that Chuck and Hancher do so well is get people into the discussion and get them at the table who are involved in different facets of that. And a lot of times we see artists dropping in and doing something without that foundational support and the dialogue from all of the people who have different talents and backgrounds in education and certifications and things. So I just appreciate that you do make that connection, and both of you do that at your different programs. So.
Thank you.
Can I just ask you, Mary, to tell the group a little bit about your work?
I do a lot of different things.
Sorry. The project.
Okay, I'm collaborating right now with a colleague from the College of Nursing and a clinical music therapist at UIHC. We're working with adolescents who have had spinal fusion surgery, which is very, very painful post-surgical outcomes. And actually the nurse manager contacted the music therapist several years ago and said our patient satisfaction surveys are very low. So we need some help, and we can't manage it with morphine. And the kids were not able to cope with their pain. And so we started working with them and found out that they couldn't they couldn't access new information, new learning when they were in so much pain. We were trying to do music-assisted relaxation. So with the help of Obermann, we developed a pre-operation training program for them to view in their pre-op session down in orthopedics. And we're running a randomized trial right now, looking at does the practice time beforehand, kind of like the Lamaze. Maybe it's the same kind of idea, that when you're in pain, you can't really learn something new, but if you practice it ahead of time, then you have a better chance. And then they have a live music therapy session as part of the physical therapy protocol, their second day in the chair. So it's a very high stress, high anxiety, high pain time for both the patient and the parents who are in the room. So thanks to Obermann for getting us started on that.
Yes.
And maybe it's greedy to ask another question, but so I'm thinking about narrative, and Jason, your really wonderful presentation, but you're saying narrative is in the DNA, and I just want to push back a tidge at that because I teach a graphic medicine course, in other words, training people how to do comics, and in the course, the last time we met, we discussed a man who's trying to make an argument for creating comics with intellectually disabled people. And there are also a lot of comics about people with cognitive disabilities. And I think what I would encourage is to think beyond the verbal narrative as a way of reaching people who maybe don't do the linear narrative or even the crafted written narrative that we do, but might spatialize it or might do something else. So I just wanted to sort of
Yeah,
push back against that.
I think of comics in many ways as kind of like the gateway drug. And really they were for me, and that's absolutely true. And I've gone on the opposite direction and taught comics at the college level, and when I taught at Augustana, I taught a course on comic books and the hero archetype from Beowulf all the way through Batman, and I had parents say to their children, like, well, what am I paying for? Why are you reading comic books in this, very expensive liberal arts school? But the sequential art helps them understand how those things connect in such a different way, and it offers so many different avenues for storytelling that you're absolutely right, yeah.
I just wanted to respond to that. I think the YouTube phenomena feeds into that. There's so many of us that write, but then for those others that want to bring it alive in video, and I just think it's interesting that how that took off so fast, where people use video as their medium to express themselves and tell their own narratives. And I ended up writing an article about the experience with piece paper, and then Genevieve made this video. So all these different forms of expression come out from a common experience. It's pretty wonderful.
I'm in a narrative medicine course currently. I'm sorry, my voice is going away. But we read Cambridge Introduction to Narrative, and we do actually, we gain the ability to form narrative when we gain the ability to form memory as infants. And so it's kind of interesting, to kind of put that into perspective, and it's like the universality of narrative.
Right.
And I think that it's also kind of interesting, the definition of narrative is very, is a huge source of conflict among people, because some people think that, especially with the new, e-books, e-this, really it's just changing the medium, but apparently that's enough to change the narrative. But I mean, if it has a story in context, apparently it should be narrative. So I think it's interesting too, because isn't narrative up for interpretation? I feel like it's not limited to any medium.
And Ann Bastings worked with people with dementia and Alzheimer's and other dementias, and she gets them to do collaborative storytelling. The memory is not there in the same way, but she gets them in a community and gets them to work together, and it's totally powerful. It's online.
Yes.
We have my name is Tricia Zabrowski, and I'm in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders here at the U of I. And I work with adolescents who stutter. And one of the things that I've been doing for the past few years is, and I'm really a novice, but it's so exciting to me, is making digital stories. So every summer, I have a group of teenagers who stutter who come and live on campus. And as part of the therapy, I went to Berkeley, to the Center for Digital Stories, and I was trained in the process. And what's so great about it is we're talking about bringing in both writing and digital imagery is that the kids write a story and they craft it. It's a story only they can tell. And so first we have a story circle, and they share the story. Then they narrate it, we audio tape it, and we tell them, just talk. Do not try to not stutter, or do not try to change your stuttering. And then they make these beautiful little stories where they pull in these images. And it's really been eye-opening for me as a therapist and as a researcher in terms of how to get that insider's view. And I've shared them with my graduate students who are being trained to be clinicians to get the real story, because we really, in speech pathology, are rooted in the medical model, unfortunately, in many ways. And so anyway, it's been a great process, and this past year I had new graduate students do the same thing, with the prompt being, what's it like to be a brand new therapist? And you work with these people who have these problems, and you don't really understand that. But I see it as something that would be really good for people with cognitive disorders, and we also I'm trying to do some of that with kids who have autism. Right. But I think digital stories, I'm really interested in that medium, and thinking that maybe that.
I think that's really important about fluency. Fluency is privileged. Fluency is privileged.
Very much so.
Most of the stuff on narrative, and I think it's very wise to think about the expressive substrate again in relation to attempts to story tell, not necessarily to be fluent. And with Javier Saavedra in Spain, we did a study of incomprehensibility in schizophrenia. And what we were showing there was that, at the level of symptoms and the level of kind of mapping a person's condition, sure, they're incomprehensible. But if you actually look at what people say, even when they are disrupted, they make a lot of sense in their stories. They just don't have the fluency, perhaps, that fits your...
It really helps people to, because when you listen to someone who talks who also has significant stuttering, you tend to focus more on how and not on what. And the bringing in of the images really focuses the person who's listening on the what. What is it that you're saying? So I'm really interested in developing this more as a therapeutic tool, but I'm just starting.
I would add, and you brought in YouTube, I think that some of the videos that we see on YouTube, and most people in here probably know Amanda Bagg's video, In My Voice, and she's on the autism spectrum. To use that video with health profession students gives them an entirely different experience of what it's like. Paul's, comment about, linearity and coherence. It's a different way of being in the world. Also, we have a lot of new videos by people who have been diagnosed as schizophrenic, who are actually finding this medium as a way to express, not tell their stories, but express their experiences. And I think that these are really crucial techniques and opportunities for us to look at different ways of being and saying.
Hi, I'm Mercedes Vernklug in the School of Social Work here at the University of Iowa, and this is in response to Amy's comment. I think we're in the same building.
Yeah, yes, we are.
Our School of Social Work is the only school of social work in the country that has a coffee shop where we employ persons with disabilities, so that our students can build some cultural competency with persons with disabilities. And then the persons with disabilities get some experience dealing with stressed out people, especially around finals and midterms. I'm thinking, Amy, that it would be fun to do some paper making with persons with disabilities and the social work students right there in North Hall, and then maybe sell some greeting cards made with our paper to help fund some social work community projects. So I'll be in touch with you.
That's exactly what we wanted to happen. And I'll never forget, I came out here, it was 2 Aprils ago, when my husband and I drove up here to check out the University of Iowa and see what Iowa looked like, because I grew up and lived in South Texas and Florida for many years, so this is a different place. But I remember walking up to North Hall, and I saw the School of Social Work, and I said, of course they would be in the same building, because this has just been a magical experience since day one. So, and I've been here since August, but that's been on my list to connect with you guys. I enjoy the food that you serve in the cafe many times.
I was going to ask a very naive question, building on that too. Could we make paper, instead of soaking it in water, could we soak it in coffee?
You could, yeah, no, you could, as the liquid to suspend in the vat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. It would change the color, but that's fine.
I think our alumni would buy that.
Yeah, there's some work being done.
It will keep the paper awake, too.
Why don't you just melt down Starbucks cups?
There we go. Right.
Yeah.
No, there's some work being done actually with bringing scent to hand paper making.
Like aromatherapy?
Aromatherapy type of thing with handmade paper. So that's a whole nother direction. Yeah, but
Technical question, can you make paper with recycled paper?
Yes, you can.
Because some of our kids who come, what they talk about the academic literature and stuttering and how it's just crap. It just doesn't relate to their experience, and also a lot of the stuff that's published by organizations that are out there to help people who stutter, sort of, they don't really know. So I'm just thinking it would be really cool to make paper out of that paper.
Absolutely.
be cathartic.
So they can just rip it up. They can just rip it up and throw it in.
And that's actually how you get it to be that small size. So it can also be a little bit performative in that way. And then if you want to record that and have it be part of the storytelling process, I don't see why not.
I think we have a new project underway, and it's time for lunch, so maybe we'll do that. Thank you all very much.